Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam. Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, and I am doing very well. And I pat myself on the back every day when I get the date right, because there was many days that I did not. And so anyway, good morning, everybody. It is We Need to Know Wednesday, and I have a guest this morning, and he is limited in time. And so we're not going to do our usual banter and greetings in the morning. But as you all know, in 2018, the city of Boston and the county, Suffolk County, put out a mandate via their votes for Rachel Rollins as the district attorney. And she has since went on to become the U.S. attorney. And now we have someone that is in office as the interim district attorney and also has cast his not vote, but has jumped in the race to become the elected district attorney. And so he is not here in that campaign vein naming that, but in his interim time and also to an extent him running for office, we need to get to know who he is as a community. And I'm not saying that because he hasn't been here, we don't know him. He hasn't been out there, and other folks, haven't interviewed him and talked with him, but there has been an ask. And because Rachel Rollins has been here so much and so much attention back from 2018, shout out to Rasan Hall and others. And I was a part of curating conversations around the difference the DA makes. And so we want to chat with this young man who I remember, I don't know if he was still a trainee, but back early in his career, and don't really know. And so we're going to get to know him as a community. And then after that, we're going to jump right in. If you follow me on Twitter, I mentioned this in my pre-convo with him. I've been very passionate about some of my concerns as a Black man in Suffolk County and, just some perception of some things going on in the office since he's become the interim DA. And so without further ado, I would like to present to some and introduce to others, Attorney Kevin Hayden, who is the interim district attorney here in Suffolk County. Good morning, sir. Finally, we got you here. I will start by beginning and saying that part of the holdup of getting you in the Java Cafe, you did, I believe, lose your dad. And so we definitely want to name that because, I've been a little vocal on Twitter. And so I do want to provide balance and also in a time of our world looking at humanity to, name that you deserve every right and had every right. And that even doesn't really need to be said. But I just wanted to name that from man to man and show that sensitivity, sir. So please welcome to the Java Cafe. Finally, away from what I just said, but thank you to your staff that were able to make this happen. And sir, so please introduce yourself, say good morning, and all of that good stuff. And we're going to jump into some questions. And after your introduction, based on a conversation I had a few weeks ago, you move in sort of law enforcement. If you could describe your experience as a Black man in America with one word. So go ahead and greet the people, say hello, introduce yourself, and we'll jump into some questions about who you are and things like that right after. But good morning.
Sure. Good morning. How are you? And first and foremost, I want to thank you for recognizing my dad in that situation. My dad was a very prominent civic leader in this city in his heyday, and probably the preeminent Black historian in the New England area for the time that he was with us right up until the very end. And that was a difficult time, for me and my family, and I just distracted a little bit, but I just want to thank you for even recognizing that because it has been quite a while now. I also want to offer a similar shout out to my brother Rasan Hall, who as good a friend as I have in this world. And we met first here in the district attorney's office. We're in different capacities when we first started, but then ultimately joined up with the Safe Neighborhood Initiative, and I actually supervised him as chief of the Safe Neighborhood Initiative for a number of years. And so, great brother, good friend. I know everything that he did with what a difference the DA makes, and I know you were involved in that. And so, wanted to offer that shout out to him as well. I've lived in Boston for 23 years now. 18 of those years have been in Rosendale, where I've raised my two boys, 15 and going on 13.
Two teenagers.
What's that?
Two teenagers.
Yeah, two teenagers, and they're black and brown boys that look just like everybody else. So continually sensitive to those issues, as I have been all my life, because I've had dealt with that as well. And spent, really 25 years in public service, starting here in the DA's office for 11 years, did 5 years of criminal defense work before I went on to be went to the Sex Offender Registry Board, started off there as general counsel.
Let me interrupt you, sir, because you went right into career. And so I want to make sure we go back a little bit, because part of this is in getting to know you.
Yep.
Kevin. And so you mentioned your dad and being in the city of Boston. So presumably, were you born and raised in Boston?
I lived in Newton. So okay. I was born and raised in Newton.
Okay.
My parents divorced when I was around 10.
Okay.
My dad moved to Kenilworth Street back in the day, we called it Dudley. Now it's called Nubian Square. I understand all the reasons why. So my dad grew up, went to Kenilworth Street when I was about 10, and I would split time between mom and dad. He lived in a very modest home over there on Kenilworth Street. His claim to fame was was that he lived across the street from where his grandmother had lived way back, and where he would spend his summer times in Nubian Square.
Okay. So out of that, and thank you for being, transparent about that. I didn't want you to go that deep,
yeah.
As far as, your parents, but thank you for being transparent. So presumably went to school in Newton and went back and forth between Boston and Newton. Where did you go to college? Are you Greek? Where'd you go to school? Alpha, Kappa, Sigma, what, tell us.
Yeah, good question. I went to Dartmouth College. And I was Greek Kappa Alpha Psi.
Okay.
Pledged Kappa there, Mu Chi chapter, which was born out of Chi chapter. One of the things that made me proud about that was my dad was Chi chapter here in Boston, and Mu Chi was born out of that. Went to Dartmouth College for 4 years, and spent my 3 years of BU law school back here in the Boston area. That's where my desire to do what I do now and to do what I did when I first came to the DA's office was really rekindled by an African-American professor by the name of Tracy Macklin.
Okay.
So
and you jumped ahead of me a little bit, because I was going to ask what got you into law, what was the catalyst. But before we go there, one of the things we had asked, and you mentioned your black and brown sons, and we're both, kind of on the higher spectrum. What they used to refer to as either a high yellow or a fair skin or whatever. And so
red boned.
I haven't heard that since last summer. But anyway, how do you describe being a black man in America, in Suffolk County? You have black and brown boys. You are black and brown, so that's obvious. And so what is one word that you would use in this present time, post George Floyd, with all the demand of the change, the production of the difference or the results of what the difference the DA makes? With all of that, how would you describe being a black man in one word in America right now?
Sure. For me, I guess I would say it's constantly introspective. I know that's 2 words, but constantly introspective.
Introspective. Okay.
What's that?
Introspective.
Introspective.
Yeah.
Yes, because we are always struggling with and having to deal with the reality of racism in our society that we know is real, that we know is tangible, in ways that, quite frankly, sometimes the rest of the world doesn't acknowledge. I think a lot of people want to sort of discount racism discount this nation's history and go, oh, well, that was a long time ago. And the reality is it wasn't that long ago. And the reality is that the vestiges of this nation's history and where we've come from are still very much alive and well. And Black people understand that from a different perspective. And we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it ourselves, and deal with it with each other and deal with it together. And then from there, outwardly determine the ways that we are going to make that difference and determine the ways that we are going to break the chains and that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
It does a little bit. I'll be honest, I was a little taken aback by introspective because of so much of the external that impacts us. And yes, I guess one of my first thoughts was that, for some to have to say Black Lives Matter, the notion behind having to say that. And so I can appreciate your perspective to there. And so let's just jump right in into the issues. You are the interim district attorney. And I move in some political punditry. So my understanding was that old Charlie, the governor, did not want the interim. His preference was that someone would go in that may not run for office. You decided to run for office. And so we want to know you in the interim, and we'll talk campaign stuff later. And so you're very much aware that in 2018, there was a mandate via the voters to see demonstration from all the stuff that you referred to, Rasan and I and others did, Tanisha and NAACP and everybody else, Sharice Perry and all them that were involved, to demonstrate the change that the DA's office can make. That happened. There are numbers. There is causation in research that lends to the fact that what Rachel Rollins did had an impact on folks that look like you and I, and that 13 and 15-year-old that you produced out of your loins with the help of your wife, presumably. And so, one word again, how would you describe the difference that the DA made once Rachel went in 2019 in one word? How would you describe it in one word? And then give us some context.
Complete scope change. Right?
You giving me 2 and 3 words. Come on, you're a lawyer. Come on, sir.
One word. Scope. Change of scope.
Yeah. Okay. And context for that.
Yeah, and context for that would be just really a real pivot towards recognizing that the criminal legal system has got to be balanced and used in a way that we are focusing on most serious and most violent crimes and working steadily and continually to divert those less serious nonviolent offenses, keep people out of the system, which is, is something that has always gone on, but now U.S. Attorney Rollins certainly pivoted in that respect, and I think in a very good way. And I think I applaud what she's done and her courage to make those changes.
All right, I appreciate that, and it's good. So I will be honest with you. Just a little 30 seconds off topic. Folks to say I'm press, I'm media, and I move in this space. I move away from it because there's a certain level of research required. Sir, you made me go and do some research. In reference to numbers, we had Bobby on. You're perfectly aware of that. So there are quantifying numbers that back up your appreciation that you just said around U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins. And so with that being said, is that model, is the memo, is the list of 15 something that you are going to, because there is a choice. You all in that post have choices to make. And so the decision that she made around the memo and the list of 15, you accredited the success of that, especially among Black and brown Suffolk County residents. Sir, is that something that you are going to continue to foster in this interim administration? Yes or no?
During the interim administration and afterwards, if I'm elected, I think I'm going to actually not only foster it, but enhance it.
How so?
By recognizing the individuality and human aspect of every single one of these cases. So, as far as the the do not prosecute list, the 15 cases people refer to it, they're the same lower level, less serious offenses that DA's offices have been looking at for years in terms of when to decline or not prosecute cases. And so we will absolutely continue that. That having been said, though, I think that there's a focus on the list and on the actual charges that sort of, in my opinion, misguides and misdirects a little bit what's really at heart. Because what really matters in these cases is not so much the charges. It matters who the people are and the human beings that are involved in the cases. Whether it's the accused, whether it's the victim, whether it's the larger community, how they're affected. And we should be focused on the human beings and the individuals involved in these cases when we start to look at what to do with them. So that being said, I would also say that what I think that allows us to do is to pivot even further. So there may be cases, at least in my opinion, that are not on the do prosecute list, that are not one of the 15 cases that are charges that might also be worthy of and entitled to diversion. And that's something that we need to look at on a case-by-case basis. The other reason I think that that we can do better, and that I hope to do better, is that I think that we need to closely examine what we are doing when we do not prosecute somebody. So, for example, if a shoplifter comes into our system and shoplifts 16 times in 1 year, and we just don't prosecute his or her case and send them out the door, we haven't really gotten to the heart of the problem. Same thing with addiction and mental health issues. So what I hope to do is to build a more comprehensive and robust diversion program and wraparound support and services with our community and through community engagement, so that when people come into our system and we don't bring them through it, and we decide to divert them and we decide not to prosecute them, that we can steer them in good directions so that they don't come back again.
So a couple of things there. I heard you talk about, not looking at cases and looking at individuals, and I get that, and I got the context to which you applied that on a humanistic standpoint. However, again, for folks that look like you and I, and on the wide spectrum of having melanin, those cases can be life-changing. Now, let's give credence to the fact shoplifting 16 times, and Attorney Rollins often talked about the fact that there was habitual or repetitiveness in these cases. That's a little bit different. I think there, at least about 25% or so were still prosecuted. But the fact that we have quantifying evidence that says that if you don't prosecute, 75% of the folks that get in the system don't get federal felonies, and 67% of the folks don't get misdemeanors. So again, you didn't quite say yes or no. You gave some context, but in everything, well, what I heard was yes and. Yes, you believe and will foster the work. And I have some questions about how fostering is done. But then you talked about enhancing it. So if I understood you correctly, you're going to move in the same vein, spirit, and impact of what Attorney Rollins did, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then enhance it. So we have that on record here. All right.
Yeah.
So I asked about fostering. One of the ways that an elected official and someone in your position fosters is through their administration, their appointments, their staffing, folks that are around them advising. And so, again, been very vocal on Twitter. I understand that you can't go into personnel issues, but let's just keep it 100 as we say, sir. There have been a lot of staffing changes in your office. Let's be real, some of which had initiated for various reasons around either residency or whatever, pre you getting there. And there are, you want to have quote unquote, that's in a sense real, your people around you or whatever. However, some of the appointments have concerned some people in the community, and I won't go into because I won't kind of put you on the spot. Mm-hmm. But there is a concern in the community that what you said today is not being demonstrated in how that office is now being administered. And so what is it that you would say to pundits, but most importantly, the community and voters around how you're going to foster that through people that may or may not have the life experience to lend to so you make a decision, but how the ADAs and how people in your cabinet and whatnot facilitate that work sometimes can be filtered through biases, through life experiences, good or bad. And so how are you going to ensure that the equity that exuded out of that leadership continues through those that you surround yourself with?
By doing the exact same thing, and I think I have. So if you look at my current executive staff and leadership, it is diverse in terms of people of color. It's diverse in terms of women that are on my executive staff, and it's the one area where it's not diverse is that my current executive staff are all residents of the city of Boston. They all live in Boston and have lived in Boston for a long period of time. You know, the striving and the goal for diversity, equity, inclusion in our office absolutely will continue. We have to have a community of prosecutors that represents our communities, that looks like our communities, and that work will never stop. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from. The people that I've brought on have been extremely diverse.
Well, diverse maybe in appearance. So I'm not sure. And again, personal issues, but I do understand that there is the current chief of staff a woman of color?
The current chief of staff is not.
Is Amanda still there? Okay. All right. So
the general counsel who I brought in is.
Okay. A couple of other things as far as, because again, staffing does play a role in how your office administers. And so research, there was, again, we'll be very real. There was the big project that Bobby was working on. Where is that research? Are you all still partnering with BU? Are the students all set with what they had to do as far as completing their project? Where is that? And then how will you ensure that that research continues and is driven by folks that will be what's the word? Equity, for lack of better words.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
What's the status?
And I was going to pivot back to that as well, and so I'm glad you did. To be clear and certain, data and statistics and information that will continue to drive results and continue to drive best practices that we engage in. That is something that I have claimed from the very beginning. I may not have necessarily always come out in interviews and reports and that sort of thing, but I'm telling you now, it will. And all of the work that we're doing around data and analysis and statistics will continue. We've got one of the new partners that we're going to be working with is the Center for Law and Brain Behavior, and we're going to be collaborating with them around diversion practices in the adult court for young adults. So not juveniles, but young adults who are in a system.
Can I ask one question? With that partner, have you done an extensive research in looking into their DEI policies, looking at their, are they a of color led entity? What is their experience in, because we have to be 100, the impact of the difference that the DA makes had the greatest impact as far as favorable and not being pulled into that system and all the numbers we quoted on Black and brown folks. So I and others believe that it's vitally important that those that are facilitating this research are I wouldn't even say balanced, have 51% people right. that live practice DEI. So what is their DEI experience?
So what their DEI experience is, I don't know. I know that that's something that we're focused on. I just had a conversation with the Dean of BU Law last week, who is an African-American woman, around things that we can do and collaborate on. So that's something that we're definitely focused on, making sure that a diverse perspective is heard in the research that we do.
Okay. Are you keeping the PUSH program? The PUSH program, PUSH. Yes, that was the program that Rachel Rollins started that looks at basically unsolved homicides. 20.
Yes. Forgive me, I lose some of those acronyms sometimes. The unsolved, absolutely. You know, unsolved crimes and unsolved shooting was a big part of what I did when I was in the DA's office. I spent a lot of time, as did Rasan Hall, doing grand jury investigations into unsolved shootings. So, and those are vitally important because their clearance rate isn't high. They need to be focused on, and those things are very important. So, absolutely, unsolved cases help help communities heal, help people feel like the system is working. And it's not necessarily about that per se. It's about doing the right thing in each and every case. But we will absolutely continue to push hard and work on unsolved cases.
And the Crime Strategies Bureau, is that going to stay in place?
Absolutely. In fact, we've actually enhanced it. We've added another prosecutor to that team with some direct appellate experience, so that appellate sound and piece is added to what we're doing, because every single one of these cases almost automatically involve not only the underlying case, but some sort of appeals process as well. And we're also looking to bring in another high-level prosecutor in our office from where they are in the homicide unit over to that team.
All right. And I think it's Goldworm. Is he still leading that? Is he an intricate role in that?
Okay, so I'm sorry, forgive me. So I was just talking about the Integrity Review Board and enhancing the Integrity Review Board. Yes, Luke Goldworm is still the head of the Crime Strategies Bureau.
Okay.
And the work that they do is incredible, and the way they have brought, and these are things that weren't even thought about or existing when I was here, bringing the human trafficking piece into that, and bringing all of the drug investigations along with the anti-gang stuff together under one umbrella is a very good thing.
Okay. I have a couple of questions, and this is a big, I'm sure this isn't going to take you by surprise, and we're not opening them completely, but this is one that I was going to ask anyway. Mass and Cass. What is your view, or how will you handle, are you prosecuting or not those that assault, rape, and rob, and much more? We understand the addiction. You talked about the human side of those dealing with substance use, and you talked about, repetitive issues. But there's been an outcry from the community of balance, of understanding the human side. But this question specifically named who assault, rape, rob, can kind of, depending on what happened. I don't know if that's a robberies of part one, I believe, part one crime. So what is your stance on prosecuting the part one crimes related to Mass and Cass?
Yes, those who assault and rape and rob and commit serious offenses down in that Mass and Cass area need to be charged, and they need to be held accountable. And I would add to that also the people that are feeding the addiction problem down there. Someone is peddling the opioids and the drugs down there to the people who are addicted. So I think it's very important, and I've talked to many people about this. I talked to Mayor Wu about this early on. It's very important for us to separate those who are being preyed upon and those who are doing the preying. Those who are being preyed upon, they need help. They need services. They need addiction treatment. A lot of them obviously need housing and a bunch of other support, mental health services, the whole nine yards. But those who are preying upon them down there and really taking advantage of the vulnerable that are down there need to be held accountable.
Understood. I'm going to be honest with you. There was, because another appearance I checked in on, and then, some of the folks that communicate for you, there is some mixed messaging around how things are being facilitated versus what you're casting as far as your vision here. In all fairness, like Mayor Wu and others, they do need time to administer their vision. But again, we have here. So again, I want to recap. You're sticking to now I did hear you say that it may not just be a list, but in the spirit of the law, if you will, versus the word of the law. You're going to continue in the same spirit in which Rachel Rawlings established this difference the DA makes, and also being intentional about surrounding yourself with people that have life experience, specifically BIPOC, even deeper, Black and brown, to ensure that what you've asserted that you'll continue to do today here will be facilitated in a space of equity. Yes, so far on both?
Yes, and amen.
That was a little bit extra.
No,
I have, and one of my good brothers is in the room. Good to see you in the room, Bonds, talking about he doesn't like people being taken advantage of on Mass and Cass as well. Attorney Hayden, I know your time is short. We as a community, via what we got here on recorded video and what we see happens on the campaign trail and what's quoted in media and whatnot, that's a level. But trust and believe, we are going to be we're going to be very aware of that part around what is going on in the office and who is administering this, because you may think one thing there that now let's go into a little bit of punditry since this stuff be on Twitter. You want to ensure that, I'll just say it like this, that people that are in high ranking positions with you cannot be tracked on OCPF backing candidates that don't share our values, because what that does is it lends into perception. And I'm just going to add that as an added note or whatever, because this is a different time. And that mandate that happened through 185,000 votes for change. Yes, Rachel happened to be the person, but it was about the education that Rasan and others did. And so people are well aware of the difference. And that difference needs to continue in a manner that has overly proportionate positive impact on Black and brown people. One thing here from Mass and Cass, and just because this young woman has that, you need to know the name Yahaira Lopez when it comes to Mass and Cass. Ensure that your office is very familiar with her, and when she calls, she gets a direct route. The issues down there are more Black and brown individuals are being arrested for dealing on Mass and Cass, but we see white people dealing pills, fentanyl, and get a pass. The perpetual narrative that Black and brown individuals are dealer and white people are addicts needs to be addressed. What's your response there, sir?
Absolutely. If those sorts of disparities are happening, and we should take a look at that's something that certainly needs to be addressed. That presumption is entirely unacceptable.
So how do you, and now I know that there's a little bit of, first contact is with the police in arresting, but as far as the prosecution, go a little bit deeper on how your office plans to understand and demonstrate all the way back from the difference between crack versus powder. Talk to that, and how is it going to be facilitated where you put policy on paper that ensures whether you're there or not, or whether, it translates into how your ADAs prosecute and whatnot, and how they deal with the police. How's that going to be demonstrated?
Sure. Well, that's when those cases come to us, that's where we can take a look at that sort of situation. I dealt with that all the time. In other words, let's face it, you do have people that are dealing drugs at very low levels, and they are doing it to support their habit. That happens. And that's a big difference, and then nothing to do with race. It just happens. There are people that are dealing at that level, and then there are others that are dealing at a different level. We've seen it in our community all the time. The people that deal but won't touch the drug because they don't want to get addicted, because they're all about the business, all about making the money, and so they never get caught up in the addiction. They actually look down at those who are addicted. There are people that are dealing at high levels that are doing it profit and for gain, not because of addiction. And when those cases come to us, we need to be able to look at and discern the difference, and then understand what to do with them.
And one of the ways, I'll just say this too, along with the ADAs, and I know, you can't create the pool from which you pick Black and brown folks, but, demonstration of or your policies and approach that we heard here today definitely need to be translated and transcend down, trickle down, however you want to call it, to the ADAs, because that thing of interpretation and understanding either way, without the proper life experience and education, in all fairness, someone's decision someone's life can change based on someone's decision or unawareness of what that person is dealing with, or by perception. Because if you coming as an ADA and all you've seen are black and brown folks on TV and in the media, unfortunately, no matter what the reality of the situation is, that perception can lend to their decision to prosecute or how they prosecute. And so, sir, attorney, I was going to say first name, but Attorney Hayden, that needs to exude not only in your leadership, but also in how you ensure that your ADAs and all these folks in the cabinets are overseeing these programs. It needs to exude equity and life experience. One last question and this is my wheelhouse. What is your office doing in terms of unsolved homicides? And Tasha, he kind of talked about it with the PUSH program. They promised they would be reviewing how would the surviving family be contacted. With the PUSH program, are you aware how PUSH, if they get a update, are they aggressive or assertive in contacting the families? How do they keep the database updated in case people move? Is there a standing? We don't go 90 days. We don't go 6 months without, hey, just to check in. Not much has changed, but as a courtesy, we're calling. How is that happening?
Sure. We can and will, and obviously will continue to always keep victims and witnesses in cases abreast of what's going on, because these investigations, when they are cold, the reality is they can take some time to investigate. When you're looking back at a case that has gone unsolved, they're not as easily solved. And so we need to always make sure that our victims and our witnesses and even our community have an awareness of what's going on. Vicarious trauma and reoccurring trauma that can happen when a case comes back, right? If it's cold, let's say the family thought at one point that it was over and done, it wasn't being investigated. Now we're going, hey, wait a minute, there's something here. We have a lead. We're going to crack the veil on this case and work on it. We will absolutely keep victims and families and witnesses involved and in the know with what's happening. And, related to that, and this is sort of my wheelhouse, and it's one of the things that I wanted to make sure I mention, is that, community collaboration and engagement is absolutely fundamental to everything we do. I've witnessed it myself firsthand through 2 administrations, and now from afar from the third, and having been here for a couple months, learned a lot more about it.
So your 2 administrations, let's just name, were Conley and who was before Conley?
And Ralph Martin. So Ralph Martin, Conley, and now coming into the administration that Rachel just left. And as a chief of the Safe Neighborhood Initiative, and as a result of everything that I did when I was a prosecutor, I have always truly believed that community engagement and collaboration is the key to everything we do. You're not going to build trust in our communities for our criminal legal system without real, deep, and intensive community engagement and collaboration. You're not going to build the transparency without the same. And you're not going to build an understanding of how to deal with these cases, whether to prosecute them, whether to not prosecute them, unless you are truly engaged with the community and really understand the heart and pulse of the community in order to know how to best serve them. That's something I've staked my entire career on. And I spent, as chief of the Safe Neighborhood Initiative, I grew that intervention and prevention strategies in this office to levels that had never been reached before. I was involved in returning citizens to our community and reentry for both juveniles and adults in ways that this office had never done before. So that is really ultimately going to be the cornerstone of everything we do, because without it, we can't possibly understand what our compass should be in terms of how to handle cases, because we do have limited resources and we do have to figure out where to put them. We do have to figure out, is it all going to go in crime strategies? Is it going to go into an integrity review? Is it going to go towards homicides? Are we going to put an emphasis on taking guns off the street, which is something definitely think we need to do. Guns and unsolved shootings go hand in hand.
Hold on. You just red flag just went off there. So high level, macro level, or putting that concentration on a demonstration of what's going on because the guns on the street, Pookie and them aren't going to just pick them up from some random box. There's a higher level in which they're getting into the system, strawberries and whatnot. So at what level are you concentrating? Because we want to be sure that it's not, we need some micro level, but we need the macro level to be concentrated on as well. Where do you stand with that?
Absolutely higher level first. We are in looking at and engaging in a plan to look at gun trafficking, where these guns are coming from, how they're getting here, and how they're getting into the hands, because these guns are a little bit different than they were back in the day. I think we all know that. There's more high capacity, more serious weaponry out there. I know as well as anybody, because I've been there, done that, wrote the book. The young kid carries the gun because someone bigger, better, badder, and stronger than him makes him carry it. So that's a completely different case than someone that's trafficking guns, that sort of thing. We know the spectrum. We have to deal with that spectrum. But the first spectrum is how to get them from getting here in the first place, for sure.
Agreed there on that part. One of the things I will say is that one of the folks that asked about the contact, about the list, I'm looking at her comments, and by demonstration, she may have not been contacted. And so what I'd like to do is I think it's Renee that was in your office. I want to put Renee and Tasha in touch with your office, because she's someone that advocates in this space, and someone, when you talk about community engagement, she is along with others, she's definitely a voice that could help inform the experience of moms that are left. I think it was 10 years before she came to the We Need to Know meeting, before she really started getting engaged. And so I'd like to connect her and Renee to make sure that she gets that information. The last thing I will say is, and I gotta let you, it's 9:45. Thaddeus Miles is in the room and talked about, and you mentioned this, and so that's why I didn't ask the direct question. You covered it a couple of times about your early work with the safety task force, and I believe that that's also the safety safe initiative. What was the name?
Safe Neighborhood Initiative.
Safe Neighborhood Initiative. And so that is, we definitely covered that as well. And so Attorney Hayden, you know I'm going to be here right on your boots. And again, what we heard here today is a little bit different from perception around, I'll say, awareness of ensuring that those that are making decisions and facilitating within your office understand what we heard and what you asserted here today. So, sir, please ensure that those folks around you have that life experience and understand what equity is, and not equality, and not from this I'll just say lacking of Black and brown life experience. Because again, at the end of the day, the disproportionate impact of what happened before 2018 and 19 when she went in happened with folks that look like you and I, and that 13 and 15-year-old that you were training and raising to be contributors to society. So, sir, I thank you so much for coming into the cafe. I'll connect Renee with Tasha, and we'll follow up. And I think there was one other question I want to ask, but I think I forgot what it was that quick. So thank you so much for coming into the room, sir, and having this conversation. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Let's do it again. And what was I know you said you're going to connect Tasha with Renee. There was another woman you mentioned at the beginning. We want to make sure we connect with her as well. Mass and Cass.
Oh, Yahira. I will connect with Yahira and also Tasha, because those are two, along with many others, but I can vouch for their work and advocacy.
Sure.
And so I will two separate emails. I will connect Renee so she can get them connected. Oh, this was the last question. And I don't remember the title, but community development. It was the old position that Brother Grant was in. Has that position been filled?
No, it hasn't, but it will be soon. So I've spoken to a number of people about that position, and we will definitely be filling it. It's an absolutely vital piece to what we do.
Can I make sure, because, all right, I'll end with this. A lot of our politicians and people in your type of position often say that they've talked with people and their heart is good in how can I say this right? Their intention is good in reaching out to those that are in close proximity to them that sometimes may be perceived as having a pulse and voice for Black and brown communities. Sometimes that pulse is out of beat with what the real heartbeat of the community is. So those two folks that I mentioned, I would suggest that they have you talk with them about folks that you were considering in that community liaising sort of position there as well. Victim witness advocate and a clinical person in there needs to definitely be a priority too, because yeah, when you talk about trauma. So we'll be in touch, sir, and I'll get you those emails. I think I covered everybody's questions and requests. Thaddeus, making sure we're good. All right. Thank you. Do you have someone from your staff that can, when needed, is direction, keeping them in line with your vision? Good question. This person is asking, do you have someone in your staff that is ensuring that what your vision is being carried out? What we call in the political world, the bulldog or the pit bull.
Yes, we do. Me. I will be the one to do that.
All right, that's a big purview. And what do you oversee in the office? What's the amount of staff?
I oversee the entire office. 270
right. What's the number?
Employees.
Okay.
Yep.
270 employees. Again, remember when you say stuff on here is, we can go back and clip and play it. And so the accountability, sir, that you've set yourself up for, not just here, but others. This isn't the answer and be all, but you know what, Thaddeus, I'm going to get out of here. Y'all, you have a wonderful day, attorney.
Tell Thaddeus I said hello.
I'm not telling Uncle Thaddeus nothing right now. He knows why. But thank you so much, sir. And we'll be in touch. I'll get those emails out to you right after the show.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Hey, folks, that was a conversation with interim attorney Kevin Hayden. I'll be honest, one of the most difficult, because I've been very vocal about, my concerns, and what he said here today is very different from what is perceived, what's going on with staffing changes and some things that's been said by him, and different from some of his comms people. And so we have it on record here today that he's going to continue with the spirit of which Rachel Rollins changed the office, and he committed to enhancing it. It's here on record. So we have some standards in which we can critique, hold accountable, and whatnot. And speaking of that, Thaddeus, I was, and I've been very honest about that. You, Uncle, absolutely right. I was, because I wanted to ensure. Props, I'm not messing with you. I'm not messing with you. Thaddeus, you're right. You're right. I was. Because, and I'll just say that, and we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, there was some interaction back in my youth worker advocacy days, when I was a youth worker with attorney Hayden, and it was interesting. So I had already had almost two decades back of context. And so, but Thaddeus, you're right. And I've owned that. And I've said that. I said that to him and his staff, and it's on Twitter. So, but I tried to be balanced, biasly balanced. And this was, I'll be honest, this was one of the first ones I told a couple of people. I was like, this is interesting, because I've disagreed with people before, but have been the demonstration of the hospitality in the Java Cafe was at a higher level. This one was, I'll be honest, y'all, I struggled, because up until today, of what, and let me be careful, words matter, and I've been saying that all along, what I was aware of what was going on and is going on was concerning. And so, Rob, all right, you said that, a couple other people said something of that as well, Rob. Couple of things. March 24th is the anniversary. We'll be doing something virtually. And March 26th, we are going back to the Underground Cafe. I think there's going to be a fee there, because that is going to be the Red Cup Awards. We are sticking with the Red Cup word. It's not the solo Red Cup, but we're going to do the Red Cup Awards. And so remember that date. Today is Wednesday. Tomorrow's Thursday, the 10th. I don't think I have anybody on tomorrow. So tomorrow's Thankful Thursday with me. And I think that is it. I was maybe not 50-50, but I was a little bit. I'm looking forward to this conversation with Thaddeus. Lord Jesus, my stomach is going to hurt. But no, yeah. Whose name again? Kevin Hayden. Is that who you mean, Auntie Connie? His name? Oh, y'all about to get me, Jesus. Naraki, there are more. They're still on the site. So if you order on the site, we can facilitate pickup. Don't forget, guys, that we have candles available. I don't have any on the desk because I cleaned down the desk last night. But yes, we have candles still available. I think there are 8 in one and 9 in the other. All the mugs are gone. Hoodies are available, not these, but the JJ hoodie. Those are available on the website as well. And don't forget, where did I put it? Is it in here? Did I drop it? Oh, hold on, y'all. These at some point will be made available. These are the Java with Jimmy pins. If you have one of these, yes, it as we're developing things, yeah, it gets you early access, direct access. Pastor Marion, yes, I gotta, because yeah, I'll sidebar you because I believe I've been owing you a mug since last year, since the anniversary. I think you were one of the donation mugs. And so that actually should have been red. But I'll take care of you. Yes, look at the pin that Props design, y'all. It's dope. The red is much better when you see it in person. And to let you all know that when you wear it outside and go in the inside, just like these J's look like they're on some old neon crap right here in the middle, it glows in the dark. So, but those are reserved for right now. They'll be made available soon. All right. No, Pastor Marion, I got you with a mug. It's just that I knew that when you were supposed to get it, it was supposed to be a red one, but I'm working it out. I have one sip left just for Rasan. Rasan, heard your name a few times this morning. Good to see you in the room, sir. I don't know if you saw the whole interview. But yes, Thaddeus already called out the fact that I was biasly balanced, or he said not balanced. But it's important that we and I mean, we heard from him directly. And so, we got to give that credence. I'll leave that there. We've had Ricardo Arroyo on as well, who is another oh, excuse me for 1 second. So I can't stand you right now. So the first part, I was ready to fuss, and then he comes at the end. That's why we love you, because you're authentically you. Yes, sir. Oh boy, I just felt something. Anyway, I know that that's one of the successes of the platform is I keep it as real as possible, right, wrong, or indifferent. I do. So, yeah. All right, guys, I'm getting off of here. There are new mugs coming. They are going to be special. It's a little bit different from the past. We're on our 4th edition of mugs. This is crazy. In 2 years, we're on a 4th edition. Yes, Michelle, Kevin is running for the seat. And I kind of mentioned that in the beginning because rumor was Charlie didn't want an interim person that was going to run. And so, yes, he is running. And don't forget to let me know when we can give me a time frame of when we can have lunch. You know what I mean by that. And so, all right, I'm getting off of here. Ma, thank you. Ma said, I'm proud of you. You did a great job. Michelle, you might want to go back and watch, and I'm sure I'll get a text after. But no, I appreciate everybody that is in the room today that watched. Please share this with folk. I saw my brother Bonds in the room. Sharon Cornelius. I see you there. Miss Teresa's in the room. Props. Mama Java. Shamika, good to see you in the room again this morning. Pastor Marion. Kelly. Wawa is in the room. Good to see you, brother. Props is in the room, as we know. My brother Rob. Thaddeus, as we know. I got Rob. Heidi was in the room. Paul, I am going to reach out. There's a couple of dates and logistic things, and I got to talk to Mike to make sure we understand his vision. Don't forget, Thaddeus, we'll be hitting you up for $1,000 soon for this big yoga event we're going to have in June. I think that's it, everyone. Mama Java, Michelle, Rasan. I think I got everybody in the room. Rena, Naraki. All right. Everybody have a wonderful day. I will see folks. Tasha and Yahira. I'll make sure I get those emails sent out to get you guys connected. And that is it for me today. I know, Uncle. I know it. Y'all don't understand. Y'all see stuff here. It is worse and terrible. Oh God, let's not talk about yesterday. We'll get ready to go before y'all start acting up. It's 9:58. Tasha, absolutely. Listen, so I'm telling y'all right now, from now until probably April 1st, my sensitivity around this platform is at 150. And so just the slightest little thing y'all can say, it can slip me right under real quick, because we held it down for 2 years. 2 years. And so it's interesting. And so with that being said, I'm going to get off of here. You all have a wonderful rest of your We Need to Know Wednesday. Share the video with folks that need to understand the difference that the DA does make. And we'll see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. Have a wonderful day and afternoon, everybody. Peace.